Welcome, everybody. This is the ROI or Bye-Bye Proving Digital CS is Worth It session for Maddox Digital Customer Success Summit. You are signed up. I'm super excited to introduce our speaker. As I introduce them, I'm going to have them answer our icebreaker question. What is your biggest digital addiction? With that, I will turn it over to Marley Wagner, Fractional Digital Customer Success Leader at Marley Wagner Limited. Marley, over to you.
Thanks, Pascal. My biggest digital addiction recently, I think is kind of ironic because I've been going through an unsubscribe binge in my email inbox. I don't want any emails that are crappy in there. So it's a good reminder for us all as we build emails as part of our digital programs to make sure they're valuable and worthwhile and excellent.
Make those emails good.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining. I'm going to pop my screen up right now. And thank you for sticking with me to the end of the day, the end of the amazing Matic Digital and CS Summit. We've spent this entire day talking about the importance of digital. So if you made it here all the way to the end of the day with me, then you are already bought in on that premise. So I think it's safe to say that we can all agree that digital is a really powerful tool and it is necessary in today's tech environment. But if you can't measure it, you can't prove it. And if you can't prove it, then you've already lost it. And by it, of course, I mean buy-in from both peers and executives, budget, and of course, most of all, impact on your customers. So my goal for today's session, ROI or Bye-Bye, Proving Digital CS is Worth It, is that you walk away from our 30 minutes together knowing exactly how to measure and prove the value of digital customer success. So let's talk about it. How do we prove it? I use a 4-step methodology when measuring a digital CS program. Starts with engagement, right? Are your customers interacting with the content and the self-service options that you have provided to them? Then, of course, it goes into product usage. Is engagement driving behavior from your customers? And then this category, this third step, I call insight indicators. We'll get a little more into what that means in a moment, but it's basically all about what's changing along the customer's journey. And then, of course, all of our ultimate goals here, it's retention and growth. Are you hitting your business goals? A lot of times we focus on this end result, this ROI, this retention and growth. NRR is our North Star, our ultimate metric in many of our customer success organizations. But if you're on an annual renewal model, as many of us are, it is physically impossible for you to improve retention rates overnight, even with the absolute best digital CS program in the entire world. Time doesn't work that way, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't demonstrate value early, and it doesn't mean that you won't be able to draw direct correlation to those increases in GRR or NRR that you want to see a year from now. It just means that you have to create a path to connect those dots. So this 4-part model is what I use with all of my clients to help them get that buy-in that they need to keep building their digital program. And a reminder that these build upon each other. You do need all 4 layers to prove real ROI. So I want to dig into each of those. First, of course, is engagement. This is the first question we want to be asking. Are your customers seeing and interacting with your digital content? We think of these often as marketing metrics, but the reason that they're important is because engagement shows that you are, in fact, reaching your customers. That's the first key step. Without this initial signal, they're certainly never going to get all the way to value. So, of course, we're talking about email metrics, open and click rates, even bounce and unsubscribe rates that would call out some specific tweaks that you need to make. Things like views and clicks with your in-app guides, as well as the dismisses. Who's saying, nope, I don't want to see that. I don't want to read that. When we're talking about video, that's how many people are watching it and how much of it are they watching, that watch time. This could even look like things like webinar or office hours attendance, survey response rates, even contributions within your customer community. I also recommend that you track these metrics in a number of different ways. Yes, at an aggregate level, but also by persona, by segment, and by use case. That way you're able to surface kind of what content works best for which specific audiences. That product usage, of course, is the next step. Great, they clicked the CTA, whatever you wanted them to click on in your email, your in-app pop-up, whatever it may be. But then did they actually do something meaningful with that? Is that engagement driving behavior? The point is not just them engaging with your content, of course. It's them actually taking the desired action because of that content. So we're talking about, hey, are we looking at time on platform? Are we looking at login frequency or time since last login? How about the percentage of users that are using some of your stickier features, adoption of those features? And then change in usage over time. This one is particularly relevant before and after digital. You know, I think the most important thing as we continue to talk about the 4 sort of steps, if you will, of this measurement framework is that you are measuring these things in cohorts, right? After that first step, that engagement measurement, then I want you to measure the rest based on, hey, let's compare the customers who did engage with our content to those who did not. Where do we see differences? Where are things working better with the customers who engaged with our content? And where are they not working as well? That's really going to show you how you can tweak and iterate over time. The third step, if you will, are those insight indicators. I struggled for a really long time with what to name this particular step. Nothing ever felt quite right because this one is the one that can vary the most from one company to another. These are sort of chameleon metrics often. Sometimes they kind of look like leading indicators, sometimes lagging indicators. They sit in kind of a funny gray zone, and every single company, what you're measuring here at this phase is going to look a little different because they're going to vary based on what's important to you and based on what you know indicate success or risk within your business. But they also reveal powerful patterns because of the nature of these metrics. It tells us what's changing along the customer's journey. So I'm talking about potentially this is things like time to onboard and time to value at the beginning of your customer's journey. This is looking at your cost to serve. How much is it costing you to service your customers when it comes to, yes, everything from CSM headcount costs to technology costs. What is the cost to serve per account? Sometimes things like CSAT, NPS, or customer effort score survey feedback comes into play at this stage. And then, of course, health scores. This is a really good example that can be used relatively universally as long as you're confident in the accuracy of your health scores. It's a good predictor of, hey, are we heading in the right direction towards those retention and growth goals? These metrics can also be really, really powerful in changing the hearts and minds of your peers. For example, sales and marketing, because these metrics can easily be aligned to what matters to them, to your peers, to their audience. We'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later as far as communicating these metrics to your peer organizations and executives, but keep in mind that this is an important category when it comes to those conversations. Then, of course, the end goal for us all is all about retention and growth. We are reaching the end of the journey, if you will, in the measurement of the success of our digital CS programs. This is the end game. These are the KPIs that ultimately the C-suite and your board care most about. But in order to get here, you have to have First, engaged customers, then stronger usage, then more positive sentiment and change in those behavioral indicators. Then and only then can you get to long-term value. So another reminder that these 4 layers that I just talked about, these 4 steps of measurement, really do need to be continuously measured over time, and that you should measure them for those different cohorts of customers. Measure customers that do engage with your content versus those who do not. That's really how you're going to be able to prove the success and demonstrate that success through data of your digital CS program. So, okay, we've done all this measurement. We've measured these 4 stages. Yes, we're seeing that our customers who are engaging with our digital content are on a happier path, if you will, than those who are not. Fantastic, amazing. What do you do with that data? How do you tell the story to your peers, to executives? How do you turn metrics into buy-in? Of course, I think a challenge that many CS leaders are faced with is that they're kind of inundated with data, right? We sometimes have so much data in front of us that we don't even know what it's telling us anymore. So I think this is really important to step back and say, hey, if I have this data available to me, right? Let's say we have gone the course of a year through an annual contract cycle, and we have gotten to those increased retention rates because of our digital programs. How do we communicate that? How do we get additional buy-in, additional budget? How do we prove that what we're doing is working and that we need to continue building it? So I use kind of a 3-part framework generally for this. It goes data, insight, and business impact. The most important thing when you're speaking to any cross-functional audience is to really speak their language. Of course, like I mentioned, when it comes to executives, they are going to be most focused on return on investment, ROI. They are really worried about the bottom line. They are worried about retention and growth. Although we know that won't get there overnight, right? So you can use some of those shorter term metrics that we talked about earlier, along with some industry benchmark data to kind of show them the path to getting to that ROI. When it comes to your sales counterparts, oftentimes the concept of digital customer success can be very, very foreign to our friends over in sales, right? We know some of the challenges that I'm sure we've all faced just in explaining what customer success is, let alone adding the word digital to that. So when you are talking to sales folks, I really recommend focusing on things like expansion potential. Again, we want to speak their language. What in our data, in what we have gathered, is going to be meaningful to them and make an impact on how they are measured as well. Like I said, expansion potential is a really good example of this. One scenario I can think of, from data analysis that customers who heavily use feature A in your product are way more likely to then upgrade, right? Expansion revenue to get access to feature B over here that is maybe related, but has more functionality. Well, great. Then you strategically incorporate messaging about that gateway feature, so to speak, into your digital communication, into your digital CS strategy. And that's a great story to be able to tell to sales and demonstrate that data. Hey, from this set of campaigns, this email flow, whatever it may be, we think we have gained XYZ number of upsell opportunities for your teams. With your marketing counterparts, this can be a really sticky, tricky relationship between marketing and digital customer success. There is a lot of debate over who should own customer-facing communication for existing customers. My answer to that question, by the way, is it doesn't matter as long as both teams, marketing and CS, have agreed on who owns it. And then actually someone added to what I usually say, and that is working, right? Is it working for the customer, whoever owns it today? That agreement you've come to, very important. So thinking about things like advocacy potential when we're talking to our peers in marketing, if they're measured on customer advocates, great. How can we track some of the same metrics that they're using in what we're tracking as well, so we can then report back. And then of course we're sometimes talking to our customers. I don't know about you, but I've certainly been in many scenarios where we have had to transition our customers from having a dedicated CSM to not, to having a digital first experience, and maybe having a pooled CSM or having access to some human, but making that shift. And we need to be able to explain to them why that is happening. The biggest metrics and call outs when you're communicating to your customers about this is really about the outcomes and the efficiency that they're going to get. It has nothing to do with your internal efficiency. They don't care, but they do care about their own efficiency with your product, with your platform, with your company. So that's a really powerful message to be able to say, hey, our customers who are going through this digital experience with our company, guess what? They are able to do XYZ more things because of this digital journey, right? Showing them other examples can be really powerful. While you're doing that, depending on who you're talking to, I always keep these things in mind. Number one, I like visuals way more than I like spreadsheets. I think most people do. Of course, you can always send raw data if someone requests it, but I don't think it's a very good communication tool. It's not very effective. It's hard to look at collaboratively, right? So I always recommend a chart, a visual of some kind, over a spreadsheet. Then we want to be showing trends over time, not just snapshots. Similar to what I was talking about measuring in cohorts, who engaged, who did not. How about measuring over time? Hey, as of this point last year, when we had no digital CS motion at all, we were at XYZ place with ABC metric that we're talking about. Now, a year later, we're at this way better place. That is a really helpful comparison as well. So showing those trends, not just single snapshots in time. And then my last piece of advice, regardless of who the audience is to share wins. Even the small ones can be really impactful. I love a good pilot or a good proof of concept. It's a great way to demonstrate initial value, quick value, particularly with those first two categories of measurement, engagement and product usage. And you can have data relatively quickly in those two categories to be able to demonstrate initial success and share those successes early on. I'm just reading a question from the audience over here. How much of this is driven by an operations team within your CS org versus partnering with marketing to help develop the content and tracking? So Paul, I really go back to what I mentioned. I don't think there is a single correct org structure when it comes to digital customer success or customer marketing. We could have a debate over whether those are synonyms or not. It's not that there is one right way to do it. It's about evaluating what and where and who have the strengths within your broader company to make what you're trying to accomplish come to life, right? And so yes, sometimes that means the CS org may be driving the process, but they are relying on marketing to create content for them. Sometimes it may look different. Sometimes CS may be able to take it all. Sometimes earlier today, I moderated a panel and someone was talking about how, hey, marketing actually used to do their own automated onboarding before digital CS was even a thing at their company. So they still own some of that early communication. It's okay if it looks different from one company to another, but it's really about coming to an agreement about where the strengths are and then deciding who should own what and how effective is that. Let's see, another question about talking about the cohorts that I mentioned. Am I putting customers into cohorts based on their engagement or using other criteria? Yes, when I'm talking about cohorts, I am saying, hey, cohort 1 engages with our content or engaged with our content historically. Cohort 2 did not or does not. And we are comparing the metrics over time in these 4 different categories, or 3 really, because engagement is the first one. So the 3 subsequent, based on the division within that first set of measurements. This is really important, again, because I think, for so many years, customer success more broadly has had to kind of fight to get a seat at the table and prove the value of customer success overall. Now that we're kind of narrowing in on digital, I think it's important to specify, hey, this was a digital engagement that made the difference here, not just the broader customer success motion. So that's why I recommend that. Great question. Thank you all for the questions as well. Keep them coming. I love audience questions. And yes, we do have to shout out the work we're doing. Absolutely, absolutely. So I want to share a couple of examples, kind of real world wins. There is proof out there that demonstrating value in this way does work. These are 3 real companies that I have worked with, that, you know, these are mini case studies, if you will, that have been able to prove the ROI of their digital programs. The first one, all they did was build and launch a new automated onboarding process. They did not go any further than onboarding yet. That is the next phase of their journey with digital. But after just focusing only on an automated onboarding journey, they have seen insane metric changes, a 44% reduction in time to onboard and a 33% reduction in time to value. That is massive. That then impacts their cost to serve their customers because there is less CSM time upfront. That impacts, of course, we know how important time to value is. We want our customers getting value from our products and from our companies as quickly as possible. So that one, I love that quick win as well. Onboarding is a great place to start building digital because you can see really impactful wins like that. The second example here, this company optimized and personalized their entire digital customer journey. You know, from the moment the contract is signed through renewal and expansion, they did it, you know, the whole kit and caboodle, if you will. And they got to those ultimate growth metrics. They saw a 40% increase in NRR and a 43% reduction in cost to serve. That 43% reduction was millions of dollars in savings. That's huge. It's massive. So this is happening out there. There are companies who are being successful in demonstrating and proving this value. The third example I have here, this particular company, they were having good engagement with their users in their product, but they were not having any interaction with their executive sponsors at their customer companies. They were not having success in getting them to join QBRs, and they did not have automation directed at that persona, that audience specifically. So we built an executive email flow and some automated value reviews that also went to the executives. That alone, just targeting that one persona, led to a 20-point reduction in churn, right? Those are the decision makers, and $1 million in expansion revenue. Think about the impact that would make in your company. It's huge, absolutely huge. I love the conversation in the chat as well, you guys. I love it. Glad to see that some other folks are having success as well. Yeah, love to see it. So I'm just checking. I want to make sure I got to everyone's questions before I move on. What is a good cost to serve percentage? I wish I had a good benchmark for you. It really depends on your segmentation and tiering model, your ARR, your ACV, all of that. There are some formulas out there. Reach out to me afterwards if you'd like a copy of that. I don't know it off the top of my head, but there is not a single standard benchmark on cost to serve, unfortunately. So as a reminder, this is the framework that we're talking about, right? This is the basis of how you prove the value of digital. Engagement, are your customers interacting? Usage, is that engagement driving behavior? Insights, what is changing along the journey? And then that ROI, are you hitting business goals around retention and growth? I want you to use this in your reporting, your budget requests, even your performance reviews. It's really, really a valuable tool to be able to prove that value. And it's something that you as an individual can do and can measure, regardless of where you sit in the organization, regardless of your level of responsibility, the size of the team that you manage. Using this framework is something that you can start today. You can implement on your own. in order to continue proving the value of the work that you do. Let's see, another question from the audience, Cassandra. As a fractional, how do you begin working with a company and align across teams for the digital campaigns? Sure. So I actually don't think being fractional impacts it very much, but regardless of whether you're in-house or I'm coming in as a partner to help you build your digital strategy, the first thing that I recommend doing is starting with a customer journey map. You've probably heard that a lot today. I am going to have a hot take on it and say that the map itself is actually not why I do that. The reason that I go through this exercise is because when I do a journey map, I map the ideal state, the ideal customer experience. And then as I go, I map, hey, what are the gaps between that ideal customer experience and what's happening today? And that really creates my project plan, my list of to-dos, everything that needs to be created from a content perspective or self-service perspective. That really creates, hey, this is everything ahead of us. This is what we need to build in order to create that ideal customer experience. So that's where I always recommend folks start. So once again, I really want you to just use this framework, go out and use it. I hope it's really, really valuable to you because as I said at the beginning, if we can't prove the ROI of our digital CS initiatives, then we all know what we'll be saying to our digital CS programs, right? And that is bye, bye, bye. You know, I couldn't resist the InSync meme with a title like this, right? I know we have just a couple of minutes left. I would love to answer any other questions that folks have if they want to throw them in the chat. If not, I want to thank everybody so much for sticking it out to the end of the day with me. This was a fantastic, fantastic day put on by Matic, and I am so honored to be putting a bow on it at the end of the day today. So thank you all so much.
Big shout out to Marley. Thank you so much for hosting. It was a wonderful session. And I think we got most of the questions. We can go ahead and wrap it up here. The recording of this session will be available next week in our resource hub. And all summit attendees will be notified when the resource hub is live. Thank you all for attending. Thank you, Marley, for speaking, and it was wonderful. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks.